It was a chilly October evening in the small town of Maple Hollow, Pennsylvania, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked and still trusted their neighbors. Emma Caldwell, a 26-year-old librarian with a gentle soul and a passion for poetry, was walking home after closing the town's quaint little library. She had taken her usual path, a quiet, tree-lined street where the only sounds were the rustling leaves and the distant barking of a dog. But that night, something felt off. Emma had mentioned to her friend earlier that week that she felt like someone was watching her lately, lingering stares in the library, footsteps that echoed behind her but never revealed a source. She brushed it off. Maple Hollow wasn't the kind of place where bad things happened. Until that night. Her body was found the next morning, laid gently in the park near the duck pond. Her hair was combed, her clothes unruffled, and placed on her chest was a single blood-red rose, fresh, fragrant, and thornless. There were no signs of struggle, no signs of sexual assault. Only the rose, and a small scrap of paper beneath it that read, "To the one who reads between the lines." The entire town reeled. Shock turned to horror as local authorities scrambled for answers. The symbolic nature of the murder, the presentation, the note, the rose, suggested this wasn't random. This was personal, intentional, ritualistic. Detective Lauren Hale, a seasoned but emotionally guarded investigator who had recently transferred from Philadelphia, was assigned the case. The moment she saw the rose, she knew this wasn't a one-off. She had seen something like this before. Years ago, back when she was still in training. A cold case, a file no one could close. But that killer had disappeared. Or had he? 3 weeks passed. The community tried to move forward, clinging to their routines, their traditions, and the comforting lie that lightning wouldn't strike twice. Then it did. Samantha Sammy DuPont, a 34-year-old elementary school teacher, failed to show up for work one Monday morning. Her friends and co-workers initially assumed she had taken a personal day. But when she missed school again the next day and didn't respond to any calls or messages, concern turned to panic. Her apartment was empty, her purse still on the counter, her cat unfed. 2 days later, joggers found her body in the woods behind the school. Same presentation, same red rose, same typewritten note on cream-colored paper, "To the one who nurtures innocence." Lauren Hale stood over the scene and felt a cold shiver run through her spine. 2 women, both respected members of the community, both known for their kindness, and both killed with care, as if the killer believed he was honoring them in some twisted way. She looked at the rose again and thought of the cold case she had read years ago. Different state, different victims, same MO. The killer had vanished after 3 murders. No leads, no evidence, only roses and riddles. Now he was back, and this time, Lauren vowed she wouldn't let him vanish again. The town of Maple Hollow was officially in crisis. 2 high-profile, eerily similar murders within a month forced local authorities to call in the FBI. Behavioral analysts from Quantico arrived, and among them was Agent Malcolm Price, an expert in ritualistic homicides and criminal symbolism. Agent Price and Detective Hale immediately clashed. Lauren, driven by emotion and her personal connection to the cold case, felt the urgency of stopping the killer. Malcolm was analytical, methodical, and cold, focused on data and patterns. Together, they began dissecting the case. The roses were fresh cut and of a rare hybrid breed, Eternal Flame, only cultivated in a handful of greenhouses across the country. The notes were typed on a vintage Remington noiseless portable typewriter. They traced this detail back to an antique shop, but the owner had sold one just like it 6 months ago, to a man who paid in cash and wore gloves. Victimology showed both women were caregivers, one a librarian, the other a teacher. Both single. Both had ties to the local poetry society. A theory emerged. The killer viewed these women as muses, idealized figures of purity and inspiration. He wasn't just killing, he was composing. Each murder a stanza, each rose a signature. The killer struck again, this time in Philadelphia. Angela Moreno, a 41-year-old art therapist and abuse survivor, was found in her loft apartment, posed, peaceful, and again, with a rose and a note. But this note was different. It read, "To the one who heals what's broken." The emotional impact hit the community hard. Angela was beloved, and the distance from Maple Hollow to Philadelphia meant the killer was mobile. Agent Price began constructing a psychological profile. The killer was likely male, late 30s to early 50s, highly intelligent, with narcissistic tendencies and a deep obsession with symbolism. He likely viewed himself as a misunderstood artist rather than a murderer. Lauren found something more disturbing. All three victims had checked out the same book from the library, an obscure poetry collection titled Whispers to the Dead, self-published years ago by a writer using the pseudonym G. Morris. They had a lead. A writer. A man with a fixation on death, roses, and muses. The poetry book held more than lyrical sorrow. Embedded in each poem was language echoing the killer's notes. The same phrasing. The same tone. Lauren and Malcolm traced the pseudonym G. Morris to a defunct publishing house. Eventually, they uncovered the real name, Gabriel Moore. A reclusive writer who had vanished from the public eye years ago after a scandal involving plagiarism and stalking allegations. They tracked Moore's last known address to a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The place was empty but not abandoned. Inside were hundreds of dried roses, framed photographs of women, some known victims, some unidentified, and notebooks filled with obsessive writings. In one journal entry, Gabriel wrote, "She smiled at me today. For a moment, the world stopped. I must immortalize her before time ruins her beauty." Lauren stared at the words and felt bile rise in her throat. He was hunting again, and he was watching his prey long before the first kill. Surveillance footage and credit card transactions placed Gabriel in Maple Hollow weeks before Emma's murder. He had rented a room under a fake name and was seen browsing the library where she worked. He had also attended a community poetry reading the night before Sammy was killed. The FBI issued a bolo, "Be on the lookout," and Gabriel Moore became the most wanted man in the state. But catching him wouldn't be easy. He was a master manipulator, able to blend in, disappear, and erase his digital footprint. Worse, it became clear he was watching the investigation. A package arrived at the police station. No return address. Inside, a single rose, perfectly preserved in resin, and a note. "You're close. Too close. But the final stanza is not yet written." The game had begun. A break came when Gabriel used a stolen ID to rent a cabin near a lake just outside New Jersey. A SWAT team raided the place, but he was already gone. What they found chilled them to the bone. In the basement was what Gabriel called the Room of Roses. Hundreds of roses hung upside down from the ceiling, drying like herbs. Along the walls were collages of victims, newspaper clippings, and red yarn connecting faces to poems. In the center was a table. On it sat a fresh rose, a candle, and a list. 10 names. 3 were already dead. The remaining 7 were potential future victims. Lauren Hale's name was number 10. She stared at the paper, her heart pounding. Gabriel wasn't just killing muses. He was writing a story. And in his twisted narrative, Lauren was the final chapter. Detective Rowan sat across from Gabriel Holt. No cuffs. No screaming. Just 2 men. One broken by darkness, the other trying to understand it. Gabriel wore his calm like armor. He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. His voice was low, like velvet soaked in venom. "You think you know me?" he asked. "You think you've seen what I've seen?" Detective Rowan leaned in, placing a photograph of the 5th victim on the metal table. She was 17. Still believed in fairy tales. You ended her story with a lie. Gabriel looked down at the photo, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Rowan couldn't tell if it was sorrow or satisfaction. "Why the rose?" Rowan asked, this time softer. No accusation, just a question he desperately needed answered. Gabriel's eyes drifted shut. Because they were loved once, and love deserves remembrance, even in death. The trial became a national sensation. News outlets dubbed him the Rose Reaper. Protesters screamed outside the courthouse, demanding the death penalty. Others called him a misunderstood mind, a tortured artist of death. Gabriel's defense was insanity. His lawyers painted him as a product of abuse, a fragile soul shattered by childhood trauma. But the prosecution had stories, voices, blood. One by one, the families of the victims testified. A mother clutching the dried rose found on her daughter's chest. A brother who screamed until the judge warned contempt. A best friend who fainted on the stand. Gabriel watched them all, unmoved, until Detective Rowan took the stand. He read excerpts from Gabriel's journal, verses written like lullabies for the dead. And then, he read a poem Gabriel had never published, about Rowan's own daughter, who'd been on Gabriel's list before he was caught. The courtroom fell silent. Gasps. Tase. Even the judge paused. Gabriel looked up. For the first time, his mask cracked. "Did you love them?" Rowan asked him, publicly, from the stand. Gabriel's voice trembled. "I don't know what love is. 6 months after Gabriel was sentenced to life without parole, another body appeared. Same staging, same rose. But this time, it wasn't red. It was black. Panic surged through the city again. Rowan, though retired, returned to consult. Was this a disciple? A follower seduced by Gabriel's twisted poetry? The new killer left no journal, no fingerprint, no hair. Only a whisper, an unfinished verse scribbled on the victim's wall. Where love once lived, the thorn still weeps. Gabriel denied any involvement. I work alone, he said from prison. But the look in his eyes said more. Pride, ownership, or fear. Police discovered a forum online where dark minds praised the Rose Reaper. One user stood out, posting cryptic odes to death weeks before each new murder. The hunt began again. A new profiler, Dr. Myra Lang, joined the task force. Young, brilliant, and obsessed with the Rose Reaper case since college. She visited Gabriel in prison, interviewed him, tried to get inside his mind. But Gabriel, now gaunt and aging, only smiled. You're not afraid of monsters, he told her. That's dangerous. Dr. Lang's notes grew darker, her interviews more erratic. Detectives feared she was too close, too captivated. Then, a package arrived at Rowan's home. Inside, a rose pressed between pages of Dr. Lang's childhood diary, one she never told anyone about. Was she the new killer? Or the next victim? Lang vanished days later. 10 years later, Rowan visited the graves of the victims. He placed roses, real ones, at each site. He still carried the weight, still dreamed of thorns. Gabriel died in prison. Suicide. Left behind one final letter. To the world I could never belong to. I gave it beauty the only way I knew. But the killings didn't stop. Another girl. Same rose. Same poem. New city. Was this a cult now? A belief system built on the poetry of death? Or was Gabriel smarter than everyone realized, and someone else was his true heir all along? Rowan stood at the last grave. Looked down. One petal had fallen off the rose, carried by the wind. He whispered, "It's not over." Did Gabriel Holt act alone, or did he inspire a new generation of darkness? What does it mean when symbols become gospel for the disturbed? Let us know your theories in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more twisted stories from the shadows. And always remember, even the softest rose can hide the sharpest thorn.